Welcome to Fabric Monday. Let's talk about how to copy or move data flows between different workspaces in Microsoft Fabric. Let's go to Microsoft Fabric. Here I have a workspace called Pipeline Deployment Dev, and I have a data flow called Aggregation 1. By the name of the workspace, you already understand that this is a development workspace, so it's natural that we need to move the objects or copy the objects to other workspace, to the test workspace and then to the production workspace, like a promotion between the workspace. I have the test workspace here, and I don't have the data flow located here. So I need to copy this data flow to the test workspace. How we do that? The data flow is not supported in source control yet. You can notice that it is marked as unsupported. In the same way, it's not supported by deployment pipelines as well. So we can't use deployment pipelines to move the data flow, promoting it from one environment to another. So how can I promote this data flow? Let's follow a set of steps, but the first thing we need to notice is that this data flow is accessing this lakehouse on the same workspace. And when I copy it to the test workspace, I need to access a different lakehouse. I need to be prepared to make this change on the data flow. How I do that? First thing, I need to access the lakehouse, and I need to copy the URL of the lakehouse. Why do I need to copy the URL of the lakehouse? In the URL of the lakehouse, I have the ID of the workspace, which is located immediately after groups, and the ID of the lakehouse, which is located immediately after lakehouses. Both IDs will be needed to make the changes on this data flow. So I need to copy this URL, and I'll be saving this URL on another place until we complete this step. Let's get back to the first workspace, Pipeline Deployment Dev, and open the data flow. Let's make a preview of the query. Okay, no problem with that. So how will I make a copy of this data flow? Of course I can copy query by query, one by one. Using advanced editor, I could get the source code of the query and copy the query one by one. However, a single data flow can have many queries. It's not a good idea to use this procedure, copying the queries. Not a good idea. A better idea is to use the button Export Template. So I can export the data flow as a template. Export template, and I give a name for the template of this data flow. Aggregation template. The result is a bit unexpected. You would not be expecting this result, but we get a download. The template of the data flow is downloaded as a PKT file. So a file representing the template of this data flow. So the data flow is saved as a template on my local machine. Now I can go to the other workspace and create a data flow. Let's go to Data Factory, Data Factory Experience, and create a data flow. I can change the name of this data flow, called Aggregation 1 as well. No problem. Okay, I have the button Export Template, but how do I get that template back? Here, on the middle of the screen, we have a link called Import Template. So I can import back the template which I exported. So import Power Query template, and I select my Aggregation 1 template which I exported. That's it. In this way, I just moved the data flow from one place to another. Of course, credential information is not moved together, so the first thing that happens when the data flow tries to show me the preview of the query is that it asks about the credential. I need to configure the credentials again on this data flow. So configure credential to the lakehouse, okay, connect, and everything will work fine. Except that I exported a template consuming the lakehouse on the dev workspace. So this data flow is still consuming the lakehouse on the dev workspace. How can I change that? In this case, I need to look to the query. The steps of the query. The navigation 1 specifies the workspace which is being used, and the navigation 2 specifies the lakehouse. Let's take a look on that. Navigation 1, and we can note here the workspace which is being used by this data flow. So I need to replace this workspace ID by the ID I captured on the URL of the new lakehouse, the lakehouse on the test environment, to which I would like this data flow to be pointing to. So I get the ID of the test workspace. There it is. And then we go to navigation 2. Navigation 2 now has an error because I have the lakehouse ID and this lakehouse ID is not located on this workspace. They don't match. I need to change the lakehouse ID as well. This is the next step. I change this lakehouse ID to point to the lakehouse located on the test environment. There it is. Now we can check the additional steps of the data flow and they will be working. They are already pointing to the new lakehouse, and the new lakehouse has the same tables which the data flow is using, so it works in the same way on the test environment pointing to the test lakehouse. In this way, we just discovered how to copy a data flow from one workspace to another workspace using the export template feature and importing back to another workspace. Thank you very much for watching. See you next week.